Hello and welcome. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran and you're watching Newsnight on DD News and DD India, your prime-time destination for news and bespoke analysis. It's good to have you again with us. On the show tonight, India ramps up COVID-19 testing by launching 3 new facilities at Noida, Mumbai and Kolkata. That's not all. From being a net importer, today India is in a position to export personal protective equipment, mask and ventilator. India's is truly a remarkable story of grit, determination and hard work. Also on the show, barely 5 years after India signed an agreement with France, the first Rafale fighter jets are on their way to India. We track their journey just for you. And India flags off 10 railway engines to Bangladesh in keeping with its neighborhood first policy. Plus, news and updates from around the world. But first, as always, the headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi launches 3 new high-tech COVID-19 testing facilities for Kolkata, Mumbai and Noida. New facilities will be able to test more than 10,000 samples per day. Labs will also be able to test for diseases other than COVID-19. Prime Minister Modi says deaths due to the coronavirus in India are much lower than some countries. Says efforts are on to increase testing capacity to 10 lakh per day. Stresses on developing new health infrastructure and boosting already existing infrastructure in the villages. Appeals people to be cautious during the upcoming festival season. India rewrites its own record, conducts more than 5 lakh COVID-19 tests in a single day. More than 1 crore 68 lakh tests have been conducted so far. In a major step towards making Indian pharmaceutical sector self-reliant, government issues new guidelines for setting up parks for bulk drugs and medical devices. It will help India to strengthen its claim of being a pharmaceuticals hub for the world. Political heat rises in Rajasthan. The governor returns a cabinet note seeking convening of an assembly session. The Congress Legislature Party sends a memorandum to the President seeking his intervention. The Supreme Court allows Speaker to withdraw plea seeking action against Sachin Pilot and rebel MLAs. The High Court rejects a plea against the merger of BSP and Congress MLAs. Flood fury continues in Bihar. More than 24 lakh people affected in 11 districts. Slight improvement in the flood situation in Assam. The first batch of Rafale fighter jets takes off from France to be inducted into the Indian Air Force at Ambala in Haryana. And Railway Minister Piyush Goyal and External Affairs Minister Subramaniam Jaishankar flag off 10 diesel locomotives to Bangladesh. The move will improve railway connectivity between the two countries. All right, our cover story is about Prime Minister Narendra Modi launching 3 new COVID-19 testing facilities on Monday. Mind you, these are no ordinary testing facilities. They will ramp up testing capacity in India. They'll help strengthen detection and treatment for controlling the spread of the pandemic. What's more, they'll be able to test for diseases other than COVID-19. And that would prove helpful after the COVID-19 pandemic is over. Here's a report.
जब तक कोई प्रभावी दवा या वैक्सीन नहीं बनती, तब तक मास्क, 2 गज की दूरी, हैंड सैनिटाइजेशन की हमारा एकमात्र विकल्प है.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Monday launched 3 new COVID-19 testing facilities via a video conference. These facilities have been set up at the ICMR National Institute of Cancer Prevention and Research at Noida, ICMR National Institute for Research in Reproductive Health at Mumbai and ICMR National Institute of Cholera and Enteric Diseases at Kolkata. They will be able to test over 10,000 samples in a day.
5 लाख से ज्यादा टेस्ट हर रोज हो रहे हैं और आने वाले हफ्तों में इसको 10 लाख प्रतिदिन करने की कोशिश हो रही है.
The Prime Minister said India had performed better than some countries. The fatality rate was low and the recovery rate was high, indicating that India's strategy of testing, tracking and treating was delivering results.
इस संकल्प ने भारत को हैरतअंगेज परिणाम दिए हैं. विशेषकर पीपीई, मास्क और टेस्ट किट्स को लेकर भारत ने जो किया वो सचमुच में ये एक बहुत बड़ी सक्सेस स्टोरी है. आज भारत में 3 लाख से ज्यादा N95 मास्क हर रोज बन रहे हैं. आज भारत में हर साल 3 लाख वेंटिलेटर बनाने की प्रोडक्शन कैपेसिटी विकसित हो चुकी है.
Prime Minister Modi appealed people to maintain all precautions during the upcoming festive season in the country. He said, now was not the time to become complacent. Vigilance was of the essence.
हमारी ये उत्सव उल्लास का कारण बने, लोगों में संक्रमण न फैले, इसके लिए हमें हर सावधानी रखनी है. हमें ये भी देखते रहना होगा कि उत्सव के इस समय में गरीब परिवारों को परेशानी ना हो.
These testing centers offer other benefits too. They will reduce turnaround time and exposure of lab personnel to infectious clinical materials. They are also enabled to test diseases other than COVID-19. So, after the COVID-19 pandemic is over, these testing centers will be able to test for hepatitis B, hepatitis C, HIV, Mycobacterium tuberculosis, cytomegalovirus, chlamydia, Neisseria and dengue among others. With Arun Sharma, Bureau Report, DD India. All right, time for a short break. When we come back, we'll have more on the COVID-19 situation in India and around the world. Don't go anywhere.
सीमाएं नहीं हैं, पर युद्ध तो है. शत्रु नहीं समक्ष, पर प्रहरी तो है. दुश्मन है कि जो दिखता नहीं, पर इन आंखों से छिपता नहीं. एक अलग जज्बा है इनका. समय को रोक रखा है, काल को मोड़ रखा है. भूखे प्यासे कब से जागे, अपनों से दूर मन को बांधे. न धर्म की दीवारें हैं, न समाज के ताने हैं. लक्ष्य है, बस लक्ष्य है सेवा का, और ये रिश्ते अनजाने हैं. आंखें होती हैं नम, पर हौसले नहीं है कम. इनमें से कोई थकता नहीं, महसूस कर सकते हो बस. इनकी दास्तां कोई कहता नहीं. ये देश आपके निस्वार्थ सेवा भावना को नमन करता है.
Welcome back. You're watching Newsnight on DD News and DD India. Time now for our In Focus segment. We are discussing India ramps up COVID-19 tests, launches 3 new centers. Joining me are Dr. Randeep Guleria and Dr. Raman Gangakherkar. Dr. Guleria is the director of the All India Institute of Medical Sciences in New Delhi, and Dr. Gangakherkar is the Dr. C.G. Pandit National Chair at the Indian Council of Medical Research. Gentlemen, welcome to Newsnight. If I can come to you first, Dr. Gangakherkar, help our viewers understand how and why those 3 centers were chosen, the ICMR centers in Noida, Mumbai and Kolkata. Help our viewers understand the significance of the strategy or thought behind identifying those 3 centers.
Currently particularly severe in metropolitan cities wherever the population density tends to be high,
Okay.
wherever migration is high, wherever mobility even within the city is high, and the result one must recognize that if you look at large population bases that exist in India, you will find that you will count Bombay, you will count Delhi, you will also realize Calcutta is an important city. Now in those circumstances, if there is a severe outbreak, the most important thing for us is to ramp up our testing capacity.
Right.
If we have to control this outbreak, then we should be able to offer these tests to as many as possible in these metropolitan cities where the need of testing is not only high at present. We are seeing successful examples of reduction in the occurrence of new infections in city like Delhi, where once you started saturating the population with more number of tests, you found the desirable results that the hospital admissions have dropped down, the case fatality rate, that is the mortality, has also dropped down, new infections have also started coming down. So essentially, if we were to look at these 3 cities, their contribution to this outbreak as of now can potentially be one of the highest, and therefore looking at the population size, these cities were actually the best cities where we should have had located these machines.
Absolutely. Dr. Guleria, now India and some other countries are trying to cope with the COVID-19 pandemic as we speak, but it looks like India is at the same time thinking of a post-COVID situation. Why? Because these 3 centers can test for other diseases as well. So these centers will hold true even after the COVID-19 pandemic is over, isn't it?
In a lot of laboratories or in other things,
Right.
we have to not only look at COVID, but see how this would be useful in the long run.
Absolutely.
So that it is sustainable even for other illnesses, and how it can help the health sector. So this could be in diagnostics. These high throughput machines can do a lot of other tests, whether it be for hepatitis B, C, or for other viral infections like dengue or chikungunya, and therefore would be useful even in the long run. Similarly, we have to really look at how we can improve our health sector, providing care currently for the pandemic, but able to sustain it subsequently so that the quality of care for the citizens, especially in smaller towns and rural India, also improve. So I think the plan is to be able to have a comprehensive treatment right now, but do it in a manner so that it actually benefits us even post-pandemic and it lifts the healthcare structure across the country in a big way.
Dr. Gangakherkar, now the Prime Minister in his speech this evening touched upon a lot of points. He also spoke about specific India-related data, how the recovery rate is high, the death rate is low, the number of tests are going up consistently over the last several weeks now. For instance, I want to share a data with our viewers as well. In January 2020, this year, we had 1 laboratory for testing in India, and 7 months later, by the end of July, we have 1,300 plus laboratories, including 900 in the government sector and 300 plus, almost 400 in the private labs. Also, the number of tests, for instance, India has conducted more than 5 lakh tests per day in all these weeks and months. And PM Modi wants to scale it up to 10 lakh tests per day. And India set a new record by conducting 4.42 lakh COVID-19 tests in a single day. Also, the tests per million population has increased to 11,000 plus. Dr. Ganga Kherkar, what would you tell people around the world who are looking at India to draw the right lessons in combating COVID-19? What is India doing differently to get the numbers low, to keep the death toll low, the recovery rate high, so that other countries can also emulate from India's example?
I think part of it is we learnt our lessons in management, learnt our lessons from prevention approaches, which the rest of the countries actually started using it earlier, since they had this outbreak earlier in them. And if you look at India, is one of those countries where the medical care is known to be one of the best in the world.
Right.
If you actually see medical tourism, it tends to be the highest among all other countries across, to India as such. And therefore, the quality of care that we can provide has always consistently been good. One of the issues which lockdown achieved was delay the whole thing to ensure that we train our population, our doctors and nurses, on how to manage COVID-19. We create a capacity to test as many as they could come. The third thing was production of PPEs and other associated paraphernalia that you require to provide quality care, which was very little, which was meager at the time when the outbreak started. That could also be ramped up a lot. So you have quality of care, you have supply of these PPEs, which doesn't remain as one of the limitations in offering the care. And naturally, we must take pride that our doctors are perhaps among the best in the world, and therefore we could make a difference. We could keep on changing our guidelines as the newer evidences came, and we adopted them in such a manner that we could show the benefit in showing the reduction in mortality compared to rest of the world as of now.
I'd like to take the same question to you, Dr. Guleria. Would you like to weigh in on this discussion or narrative around India, how India has been able to keep the death toll low and the recovery rate high? Because there's a lot of curiosity around the world as to what India is doing differently, so that other countries can learn from India too.
So I think the first thing that we did was we had a very aggressive lockdown.
Okay.
And that actually gave us time to do a number of things. One was to prepare our infrastructure in a manner that we could provide good patient care and do it in a way that we would never get flooded with patients and have a situation which was seen in the Western world, that they ran out of ventilators or they ran out of oxygen points, and various hospitals had to prioritize, or a number of patients had to share one ventilator. So once we had a very aggressive initial lockdown and the number of cases did not spike as they had done in Europe, we got time to prepare for all of these things. Then I would say that our industry took up this challenge and they started a lot of internal manufacturing, because we realized that we cannot depend upon export or items coming from outside, because when there's a pandemic, there's a huge demand globally, and India will have to will not get the priority. So whether it be PPE, and if you remember in February, March, there used to be this whole issue of shortage of PPEs. Now we're making a large number of PPE, more than 5 lakh PPEs per day, and we are in a position to export PPEs. Same is true for N95 masks. So we started looking at our own Make in India initiatives and started doing that. And by the time the cases actually did increase, we were prepared to handle that increased number of cases. The same goes true for ventilators.
Right.
There was a time when all ventilators were imported from other countries. We started now making our own ventilators, and that really helped in providing ventilators even to district hospitals and other areas where there could be a need for ventilatory demand. Training became the other important issue. We started training healthcare workers on infection control practices so that they could remain safe. We started training doctors on how to manage COVID-19. Newer data which emerged over the next subsequent weeks, we incorporated that into our guidelines. So our treatment strategy has actually changed dramatically, And as we've learned more and more about the virus, we've actually been able to manage it in a much better manner and therefore bring down the mortality. So I think multiple approaches, both in terms of training, in terms of management strategies, and in building up the infrastructure, have actually helped us keep our mortality to a much lower level as compared to the Western world.
Indeed. Dr. Guleria, you referred to some data about PPE kits and masks, for instance, N95 masks. I want to take a moment to share with our viewers some data about these very issues that you raised, Dr. Guleria. Let's talk about the PPE kits, for instance. Today, India has become the second largest manufacturer of PPE kits in the entire world. How? In January, we were actually importing PPE kits. We had no PPE kits of our own to use. And this was very important for COVID warriors such as Dr. Guleria and Dr. Ganga Kherkar and other doctors and the frontline workers, so to speak. But today, almost 1,200 and counting manufacturers are producing almost 5 lakh PPE kits per day. Let's talk about masks now, or other equipment, for instance, ventilator and masks. In January this year, India was importing N95 masks. Today, India can produce 3 lakh N95 masks per day and 3 lakh ventilators again per day. So those were some data which I wanted to share with you viewers. Dr. Ganga Kherkar, now coming back to you, how important is this emphasis on human resource training which Dr. Guleria referred to train the workers at various levels in the cities, in metropolitan cities, and also the village, the rural level as well?
See, that's critical for all of us. Please remember that one of the reasons why perhaps we are continuing to be providing superior results is we have a very large and extensive public health network across in India.
Indeed.
India is one of those countries where you would have different levels of healthcare workers. We start right from ASHA at village level to a tertiary care specialist or a super specialist that you might see in any given setup. Now, if this is the case, generally when we describe, we say we have tertiary care level hospitals, then you have at district level, and then those at primary healthcare level. If you want to deliver care properly, you need to take care of not only provision of treatment, but also providing preventive care.
Absolutely.
And both can only be possible if you train your manpower, which is too diverse. No, one needs to understand that you could mention in one line to somebody who's a super specialist what you want to convey, but when it comes to changing it appropriately to the level of a healthcare worker, let's assume it is ASHA worker, you need to put it in a simpler language and what is doable. Now, all that requires training. It requires development of modules. And once you develop these modules, you need to train these people on different aspects, though with the levels, their responsibilities may tend to differ, but people need to know even at the village level as to which are the patients that I need to refer to a district hospital, or a district hospital has also got to know which patients I can't take care by myself. I need to send it to a specialized center where these ICU facilities may perhaps be offering better level of healthcare. Now, if this is so, all that effort could be put in during the period when it was locked down, and the result is very much evident today that you have lower case fatality rate in India compared to rest of the countries at this point in time.
Right. Dr. Ganga Kherkar and Dr. Guleria, please stay on if you will. I'll come back to you for one last round of questions, but before that I want to share with our viewers another piece of information that's coming in. The Department of Pharmaceuticals under the Ministry of Chemicals and Fertilizers has issued guidelines for bulk drug parks and medical devices parks in the country. Now, the Minister, Sadanand Gowda, launched this scheme in New Delhi. He said 3 drug parks and 4 medical devices parks would be set up. The Cabinet gave its nod in March this year. He said these parks would strengthen India's claim of becoming a global pharmaceutical hub.
Centre has taken significant step to make India self-reliant in high-end medical devices. Department of Pharmaceuticals under the Ministry of Chemicals and Fertilizers announced guidelines paving way for setting up of a bulk drug parks and medical devices parks in the country. Based on the guidelines, locations to set up these parks would be identified. Launching these schemes, Union Chemicals and Fertilizers Minister Sadanand Gowda said India is often referred to as the pharmacy of the world, and this has been proved true especially in the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic.
In the coming days, as far as pharma sector of the whole world is concerned, not only our country. And it gives me immense pleasure today to release the guidelines of 4 schemes for development of bulk drug park and medical device parks across the country. You are fully aware of the fact that on March 20th, 2020, Honorable Prime Minister, he gave clearance in the cabinet for this major scheme for the pharma sector.
Central government would give financial aid of maximum 1,000 crore rupees for each drug park and of 100 crore for each medical device park. Moreover, for promoting domestic manufacturing, production-linked incentives (PLI) scheme has also been introduced.
The vision of the Honorable Prime Minister Shri Modi, the scheme has been conceptualized for making India Atmanirbhar in pharma sector also. So this is a step wherein we are going ahead with our new initiations, which will make India self-reliant, and we want to see that India should be the front runner as far as pharma sector is concerned.
All these will lead to meeting our disabilities and also providing easy access to world-class common infrastructure facilities. The parks will lead to economics of scale, optimization of resources, and create a robust ecosystem for bulk drug and medical device manufacturing in the country.
It is notable that pharmaceutical and medical equipment sectors in India are largely dependent on imports. By setting up drug parks, India would be able to produce drugs worth 46,400 crore rupees, while medical devices parks would manufacture medical equipments worth 68,437 crore rupees. Moreover, these incentives would also generate jobs at larger scale. With Nishant Saurav, Bureau Report, DD India.
Right, Dr. Guleria and Dr. Ganga Khedkar, I know you've had a long day and you must be tired, and I must take this opportunity to thank you for joining us and staying with us through the DD News and DD India editions of News Night. But I want to come to you one last time on this discussion to get your views on India as a global pharmaceuticals hub. Now, we know that India produces 60% of the vaccines supplied, distributed worldwide. Your thoughts on the minister's decisions there on creating medical devices parks and pharmaceutical hub, starting with you, Dr. Guleria.
So I think this is a great initiative. One of the weaknesses that we had was that although we were making a large number of pharmaceutical drugs and vaccines, we were not making a huge amount of medical equipment.
Right.
And a large amount of medical equipment, whether it be large equipment like a CT scan, MRI, or whether it be monitors, ventilators, infusion pumps, or even prostheses for joint replacement, were all being imported from outside. And there was a need felt in our country that we need to have these things made in our own country, because that will bring down the cost and that will also be something that will be truly made in India. So I think this is a great initiative and something which was needed for a long time. And I think this pandemic has taught us actually that we have to be self-reliant in this sector also. And I think with this initiative, India should, like it has done for PPEs and N95 masks, actually be able to export a large part of this at a very cost-effective manner to the rest of the world.
Absolutely. Dr. Ganga Khedkar, I give you the last word. Can India turn adversity into opportunity by becoming a global pharmaceutical hub? At the same time, focusing more and more, going forward on R&D.
Absolutely. Now, let's try and understand one thing. India is already one of the largest manufacturers of pharmaceuticals
Right.
as well. If you look at the medicines that we provide, I think more than 70% of the drug supply tends to come from Indian pharmaceutical companies across the world. It is these companies which have actually done a great service to humanity by reducing the cost by producing generics, which is one of the best examples which we have laid down. Now, if we want to make a difference, let's say even become bigger pharmaceutical of the world, what we will need to do is try starting producing what are called as key starting materials. We have also got to ensure that our APIs remain at a competitive cost, and that cannot happen unless you have those parks where they have some incentives attached to producing the same. And one best thing that could happen because of that is reduce the prices of drugs, provide these drugs and save millions of lives. The way we say that we consider the entire world as one, we will save lives not only of Indians but also others at this point in time. Now, if that can happen, perhaps we are transforming the entire scene because of this adversity that came about. One must also keep in mind that most of the even vaccine development groups, they are approaching India for producing the vaccine for masses across the world. If you look at the our performance so far in industrial production like devices, it has not been up to the mark like we have pharmaceuticals or vaccines as such. But this is an opportunity where we have shown that if we could produce so many PPEs in such a short period of time today, we will be able to withstand the pressure and convert this adversity into one opportunity whereby India will be reckoned as the most important player related to health across the world.
Right. On that note, I want to thank Dr. Ganga Kherkar and Dr. Guleria for joining us on Newsnight here on DD India. Appreciate it. Thank you once again for your time. All right, moving on. Time now for all the COVID-19 updates.
For the first time, a record number of more than 5 lakh tests have been conducted in a single day in India, with 5,15,472 samples tested in the last 24 hours. The cumulative testing stands at 1,68,06,803. India's COVID-19 fatality rate has been progressively falling and currently stands at 2.28%, which is among the lowest in the world. Government attributed the dip to factors like aggressive testing and an effective containment strategy. Amid a steady increase in the COVID-19 cases, the Chhattisgarh government decided to extend the lockdown till August 6. Chhattisgarh Minister Ravindra Chaubey said the state cabinet took the decision to extend the lockdown in the areas which have been hit hard by the deadly contagious virus. Karnataka government has issued guidelines for the upcoming festival of Eid ul-Azha. State government has prohibited mass offering of namaz on Eidgah grounds. Maximum of 50 people can offer Eid namaz inside mosques, and if more people gather, then they will be divided into 3 groups. However, except for mosques, no other places should be used for offering mass namaz. The Vadodara administration has decided to set up a COVID care facility at the central jail this week. The move comes after several inmates of the jail tested positive for the infection. The facility, which will be set up at the health center of the jail, will have 80 beds as of now. Meghalaya's capital Shillong went into a 72-hour lockdown starting Monday amid the rising cases of the novel coronavirus infection in the state. Around 30 localities have already been declared containment zones. Actress Aishwarya Rai Bachchan and her daughter Aradhya, who were hospitalized due to coronavirus, returned home on Monday afternoon. Their last COVID-19 test reports were negative, after which the mother-daughter duo was discharged.
And now the political developments in the state of Rajasthan. Should the Rajasthan Assembly be convened? Yes, says Chief Minister Ashok Gehlot. Not yet, says Governor Kalraj Mishra. Here's a report.
Amid political crisis in Rajasthan, the Governor Kalraj Mishra returned the revised proposal of State Cabinet to call Assembly session with some query. He said that the Assembly session has to be called in accordance with the constitutional provisions. The Raj Bhavan said it has no intention of not calling assembly session. The Raj Bhavan has raised 3 points, including prior notice of 21 days for calling assembly session. On Friday as well, the governor returned the cabinet request with some query for calling assembly session. The BJP has welcomed the governor's decision. Leader of the opposition in the Rajasthan Legislative Assembly, Gulab Chand Kataria, said, in the era of corona pandemic, all doubts must be cleared.
केवल 2 लाइनों का प्रस्ताव बना करके अगर ये सरकार के पास बहुमत है तो इतना सा लिख करके राज्यपाल को अगर दे दे कि हम सदन के फ्लोर पर विश्वास मत प्राप्त करना चाहते हैं, तो न कोई डालता न कोई टालता, निश्चित रूप से उसके लिए होता। लेकिन इन्होंने शुरू से ही रास्ता ऐसा अपनाया, सदन बुलाना उनका प्रमुखता नहीं थी। उनकी प्रमुखता ये थी कि जो 19 लोग उनके खिलाफ गए हैं उनकी सदस्यता पहले कैसे समाप्त हो।
At the same time, the Congress has asserted that it is the right of the cabinet to call a session of the assembly. The Rajasthan Congress Legislative Party has sent a memorandum to President Ramnath Kovind, seeking his intervention for convening a session of the state assembly. Congress leader Anand Sharma accused the BJP of destabilizing Rajasthan government.
एक वहाँ पे ऐसी सरकार है जिसको जनादेश भी है, बहुमत भी है और अपना काम कर रही है। उस सरकार को गिराने की साजिश है। सरकार को अधिकार है वहाँ की कैबिनेट को कि वो विधानसभा का सत्र बुलाएं।
The Rajasthan High Court rejected BJP MLA Madan Dilawar's plea, the questioning the Speaker's inaction on its complaint against the merger of 6 BSP MLAs with the Congress. The High Court dismissed the petition as the Speaker had passed the order on Dilawar's complaint. On the other hand, the Supreme Court allowed the Speaker of the Rajasthan Legislative Assembly to withdraw his appeal against the High Court's order, asking him to defer till July 24th the disqualification proceedings against Sachin Pilot and 18 Congress MLAs. Meanwhile, BJP said the Congress party is going through an internal crisis because of a clash of interest in the party and is trying to shift the blame for its own problems to the BJP.
राजभवन के दुरुपयोग के लिए कांग्रेस पार्टी और गांधी परिवार जाने जाते हैं और कांग्रेस पार्टी के इंटरनल फाइट के कारण वो उससे ध्यान भटकाने के लिए राज्यपाल जी को अपने राजनीतिक एक लक्ष्य बनाकर ऐसे बयान दे रहे हैं और अशोक गहलोत जी को अपने सरकार को यदि नहीं संभाल सकते हैं उनको इस्तीफा देना चाहिए।
Political crisis in Rajasthan has taken many twists and turns in last few days. The Congress is facing rebellion from his own party leader and former Deputy Chief Minister Sachin Pilot and 18 MLAs. Chief Minister Ashok Gehlot claims to have the majority in his favor. With Murari Gupta from Jaipur, News Night Desk, DD India.
Now, hitting back at Rahul Gandhi for his latest remarks on the Ladakh face-off, the BJP on Monday said he had again insulted the bravery of the soldiers who sacrificed their lives at Galwan Valley. BJP spokesperson GVL Narasimha Rao alleged that Gandhi's family ceded thousands of kilometers of land to China. Rao said that with his repeated utterances on the India-China face-off, Rahul Gandhi was trying to present falsehood as truth.
Mr. Rahul Gandhi is insulting the sacrifice of 20 soldiers who stood like a rock, who sacrificed, who gave the ultimate sacrifice of their lives for protecting the security, for protecting the India borders. And Mr. Rahul Gandhi should remember that it is Mr. Rahul Gandhi's family, the Gandhi dynasty, and some Congress governments that have ceded India's territory to China and Pakistan. And under the BJP and NDA governments, every inch of India's land is secure.
All right, take a look at what else is making news around India in our national roundup.
The flood fury continues in 11 districts of Bihar, affecting over 24 lakh people in 765 panchayats of 93 blocks. Sitamarhi, Darbhanga and East Champaran are worst affected districts. 17 teams of NDRF and 8 teams of SDRF are engaged in rescue and relief work. Over 1,67,000 people have been evacuated from the inundated areas. As many as 14,000 people are living in 30 relief camps in flood-affected areas. IMD has predicted heavy to very heavy rain in the catchment areas of Nepal and Bihar on 28th July. There has been slight improvement in the flood situation in Assam as the number of affected people have come down to 22,33,920. However, flood-induced death toll reached 103 with one more death reported from Golaghat district. 2026 villages under 64 revenue circle in 22 districts along with more than 1,09,236 hectares of cropland are still submerged. Over 45,000 people have taken shelter in 259 relief camps across the state. Raksha Mantri Rajnath Singh on Monday held bilateral talks with his Indonesian counterpart General Prabowo Subianto in New Delhi. During the talks, the two leaders exchanged views on several bilateral and regional issues. CDS General Bipin Rawat, the three service chiefs and others were also present on the occasion. Defence Minister of Indonesia General Prabowo Subianto is on a 3-day visit to India. Prime Minister Narendra Modi extended greeting the Central Reserve Police Force on its 82nd Raising Day. In a tweet, he said, I quote, CRPF is at the forefront of keeping our nation safe. The courage and professionalism of this force are widely admired. Extending greetings on CRPF's Raising Day, Home Minister Amit Shah said CRPF is synonymous with valor, courage and sacrifice. Time and again, CRPF has made the nation proud. This dedication to serve the society during COVID-19 is unparalleled. Supreme Court has issued notice to University Grants Commission on a batch of pleas challenging its guidelines, making completion of final year university exams mandatory by September 30th. The court would be hearing the matter again on July 31st, 2020. The Mumbai police questioned Mahesh Bhatt in the investigation of Sushant Singh Rajput's death on Monday. The director recorded his statement at the Santa Cruz police station in the city. The deputy commissioner of police and investigating officer were present during the questioning. Pakistan troops again indulged in unprovoked ceasefire violation on the line of control in Jammu and Kashmir's Mankot sector of Poonch district on Monday, following which the Indian Army retaliated befitting. However, no major damage has been reported yet. With the Kerala gold smuggling case gripping tight around Kerala Chief Minister's office, the National Investigation Agency began the second round of questioning of M. Shivashankar, former Principal Secretary to Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan in Kochi. A landslide occurred in Uttarakhand's Chamoli district on Monday morning near ITBP camp in Gochar town, blocking the Badrinath highway. However, no injuries have been reported due to the landslide. The Badrinath highway connects Gangotri to Uttarkashi. Traffic has been affected due to the debris on the road. The operations to clear the highway are underway. A 2-year-old elephant calf was found dead in the Lachiwala range of Dehradun Forest Division on Monday. According to officials, it seems that the animal fell into the ditch after being hit by a train, which led to its death. The elephant died early morning when the Delhi-Dehradun Jan Shatabdi Express passed through the area. In view of the 4th Monday of the holy month of Sawan, devotees across the country queued outside temples. In Varanasi's Baba Vishwanath temple, devotees were allowed to enter the temple only after thermal screening, whereas Ujjain's Mahakal temple conducted their famous Bhashma Aarti with full fervor. Also, prayers were offered at Prachin Shiv temple in Delhi's Connaught Place.
All right, moving on, the Earth Sciences Ministry celebrated its Foundation Day in New Delhi. Union Science and Technology Minister Dr. Harshvardhan was the chief guest. The ministry is mandated to provide the best possible services for weather, climate, ocean, coastal and natural hazards. In the last few months, the Meteorology Department's accurate forecast of tropical cyclones Amphan and Nisarg and excellent fieldwork by disaster management agencies helped save thousands of lives.
India is the only country with a fully dedicated ministry solely addressing all the aspects of earth sciences. This helps in developing an integrated approach in planning and resolving major concerns in a holistic manner with least time delay. India has also developed an Earth system model for future climate projections for the first time. This model capability is at par with other modeling centers in the United States, United Kingdom, Australia, Japan, and Germany.
Now, in April 2015, Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited France. Towards the end of his visit, the Prime Minister announced that India would buy 36 Rafale fighter jets from France. The intergovernmental agreement was signed in September that year. And less than 5 years later, the first batch of 5 Rafale jets will arrive in India on 29th July. The Rafales will fulfill a critical operational necessity for a multi-role combat aircraft for the Indian Air Force. India's ambassador to France, Javed Ashraf, was present to see off the pilots.
The first 5 Rafale fighter jets today took off from France to reach India on July 29th. The 5 Rafale jets, piloted by Indian Air Force pilots, were seen off by India's ambassador to Paris, Javed Ashraf, who had earlier interacted with the pilots and crew and wished them a safe journey.
Air Force pilots tell us that these are extremely swift, nimble, versatile, and very deadly aircraft. You might call them, they are both beauty and beast. They are superb flying machines being flown by the best pilots in the world. This is going to add a great deal of strength to our air power and defense preparedness, but it is also a powerful symbol of the strategic partnership between India and France.
These Rafale fighter jets will cover a distance of 7,000 kilometers from Mérignac in France to Ambala Air Force Base in India. There will be a brief stopover in UAE, and the 5 supersonic jets will be refueled mid-air too. In Ambala, they will be operationalized on 29 July in 17 Squadron. Armed with Meteor and Scalp missiles, they give teeth and an edge to India over her adversaries. As per the contract signed in 2016, there are more than 10 customizations that India wanted that have been added as part of the weapons package. Dassault handed over the first Rafale fighter jet to India in October last year. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh also flew aboard one. Nandita Dagar's report, DD News.
In keeping with its neighbourhood first policy, India on Monday flagged off 10 broad-gauge railway engines to Bangladesh. External Affairs Minister Subramaniam Jaishankar and Railways Minister Piyush Goyal flagged off the locomotives virtually via a video conference. The Foreign and Rail Ministers of Bangladesh took part in the event. It fulfills a commitment made by India during the visit of Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina to India in October 2019. Here's a report.
India has handed over 10 broad-gauge locomotives to Bangladesh in a virtual handing over ceremony. The locomotives were virtually flagged off to Bangladesh by the External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar and Railway Minister Piyush Goyal. From the Bangladesh end, Minister of Railway Muhammad Nurul Islam Sujan and Minister of Foreign Affairs Dr. Abdul Kalam Abdul Momin received the locomotives on behalf of the government of Bangladesh. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar said this will open up new opportunities for business between the two countries.
Very few countries in the world share such close fraternal ties as those of ours. Our partnership today stands out as a role model in the region for good neighborly relations. India remains a committed development partner. Our uniquely concessional lines of credit of close to $10 billion is the largest that India has extended to any country. These projects will help in the infrastructure development of Bangladesh.
The handing over of these locomotives under grant assistance from the Government of India fulfills an important commitment made during the visit of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina to India in October 2019. In keeping with the requirements of Bangladesh Railway, the locomotives have been suitably modified by the Indian side. These locomotives will help handle the increased volume of passenger and freight train operations in Bangladesh. Railway Minister Piyush Goyal underscored the significance of further boosting the economy partnership between the two countries.
We believe Bangladesh and India have to prosper together. We accord very high priority to our relations, both strategic and economic. The leadership of both India and Bangladesh are committed to revive the pre-1965 railway links between the two countries. Honorable Prime Minister Her Excellency Sheikh Hasina has on more than one occasion mentioned that she would like to see all pre-1965 train connections restored between India and Bangladesh. Out of the 7 rail links that existed then, 4 inter-country rail links between India and Bangladesh are functional now, on which passenger and freight trains are running.
In the recent times, India and Bangladesh have stepped up their rail cooperation in mitigating the impact of COVID-19 pandemic as trade via land border faced disruptions. Rail as a cost-effective and environmental-friendly solution has helped in transporting essential commodities across the border. Both sides saw the highest ever exchange of freight trains in the month of June. A total of 103 freight trains were utilized for carrying essential commodities and raw materials. With parcel and container train services running between India and Bangladesh, it is expected that the scope of bilateral trade will be enhanced significantly. With Abhishek Jha, Bureau Report, DD India.
And staying with Bangladesh, floods triggered by days of heavy monsoon rains inundated a residential area near the capital Dhaka on Monday, leaving families stranded. Some locals in Vakurda, about 15 kilometers from the capital, took to boats to try to find shelter as the floodwaters rose. Floodwater had destroyed roads and inundated their local market. More than 9 million people have been affected by monsoon floods in South Asia, according to the International Federation of the Red Cross and the Red Crescent. The tit-for-tat consulate closures in the United States and China this month have worsened relations between the two countries. China took over the premises of the U.S. consulate in the southwestern city of Chengdu on Monday after ordering the facility to be vacated in retaliation for China's eviction last week from its consulate in Houston, Texas. The seizure capped a dramatic escalation in tensions between the world's two biggest economies that began when employees at China's Houston consulate were seen burning documents in a courtyard last Tuesday, hours before Beijing announced it had been ordered to leave the facility. The U.S. consulate at Chengdu in Sichuan province was closed on Monday. In the United States, federal agents fired tear gas canisters and arrested a handful of Black Lives Matter demonstrators in downtown Portland early Monday in a 59th straight day of protests. The security forces have frequently tear gassed and clubbed anti-racism protesters during the unrest. The heavy-handed tactics of federal officers in Portland have drawn the ire of local leaders and Democrats in the country's national legislature, who say those officers are using excessive force and complain of overreach by the U.S. government. Hezbollah carried out an operation against the Israeli military on Monday at the Lebanon-Israel border. The Israeli military said there had been a security incident on Israel's northern border with Lebanon, and Israeli media reported there was an exchange of fire in the area with militants of the Iranian-backed Lebanese group. A record number of black women are running for the U.S. national legislature in the 2020 presidential election. The year has been marked by widespread racial justice protests across the country. The Democratic Party's efforts have focused on flipping seats now held by Republicans. For Joyce Elliott, an Arkansas provincial lawmaker who is seeking an Arkansas federal lawmaker's seat in November, the decision to run was based simply on the fact that she thought she could win. COVID-19 cases continue to rise globally. More than 1.64 lakh people have been infected by the coronavirus across the globe. More than 6,52,000 people have died so far. On the other hand, more than 1.70 people have recovered from this disease. The US-based drug maker Moderna has started the final phase of trial of its coronavirus vaccine. Moderna said it has received an additional $472 million from the U.S. government's Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority to support the development of its vaccine. In Brazil, more than 24,000 new coronavirus cases were confirmed in the past 24 hours. The death toll increased by over 500 in that period. Brazil now has a total of more than 24 lakh confirmed COVID-19 cases. The death toll has surpassed 87,000. Russia registered more than 5,600 new COVID-19 cases in the last 24 hours, taking its total to over 8 lakh. More than 6 lakh people have recovered so far. The country's national recovery rate has reached 74%. Meanwhile, 85 new deaths were reported, taking the nationwide count to 13,354. South Africa reported 11,233 new cases of coronavirus on Sunday, bringing the country's total confirmed cases count to more than 4.45 lakh. The country recorded 114 new COVID-19 related deaths in the past 24 hours, taking the nationwide toll to more than 6,700. The tourism region of Western Cape has recorded the highest number of deaths at over 2,800. A decision on when the London Marathon can be held has been pushed back to 7th August. An announcement had been expected on Tuesday on whether a socially distanced London Marathon could be held on Sunday, 4th October. However, London Marathon events have delayed the decision. In an open letter to all participants on Monday, event director Hugh Brasher said the delay was due to a need for further consultation with the local National Health Service, the emergency services and local authorities as well. The London Marathon routinely attracts close to 40,000 participants, and this year's race was set to pit the world's fastest runners Eliud Kipchoge and Kenenisa Bekele against one another. The International Cricket Council has officially launched the inaugural ICC Men's Cricket World Cup Super League. Starting on 30th July at Southampton in the United Kingdom, the Super League will begin with a series between world champions England and Ireland. Introduced to bring context to one-day international cricket, the Super League will determine qualification for the ICC Men's Cricket World Cup 2023, with the top 7 teams automatically booking their spot at the event in India. Featuring 13 teams with 12 ICC full members and the Netherlands, the Super League will see each side play 4 home and 4 away 3-match series. Now, 27 July marks the 5th death anniversary of the People's President, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. His family paid tributes at his memorial at Rameshwaram in Tamil Nadu. Meanwhile, the Defence Research and Development Organization has launched its innovation contest Dare to Dream 2.0 in honor of Dr. Kalam. The scheme is being launched for emerging technologies to promote the individuals and startups for innovation in defence and aerospace technologies in the country after the call of Atmanirbhar Bharat given by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Now, the Dare to Dream 2.0 is an open challenge to promote the innovators and startups of the country. The winners will be decided after due evaluation by an expert committee. The award money up to Rs 10 lakh for startup and Rs 5 lakh to individual category will be given to the winners. And that's a wrap, but news continues here on DD News and DD India. You can catch all the latest updates on our social media, mobile and digital platforms. We leave you with this tribute to Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
I, Rahul Akib Zainulabdin Abdul Kalam, do swear in the name of God that I will faithfully execute the office of the President of India.
You know, smiling is a fantastic thing. If you smile, the whole day will be smiling. If you don't smile, they will not smile. So it's like, make it a habit to smile. It creates a lot of friendship, a lot of happiness. Where there is righteousness in the heart, there is beauty in the character. When there is beauty in the character, there is harmony in the home.
When there is harmony in the home, there is harmony, there is an order in the nation. When there is order in the nation, there is peace in the world.